Welcome to Talking Tea with Auntie, where we interview interesting people from everyday walks of life. Big trigger warning for eating disorders and body image issues, because we're going to be talking with them with Potty Mouth Pollyanna or Mandy. So now to me, your gay auntie. Hello lovers, welcome to another episode of Talking Tea with Auntie. As always, I'm very grateful all of you are here, and I'm so excited for our episode as always. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, and one that's a little bit more on the serious side. So a trigger warning for body image stuff and other content regarding that type of discussion, because today we're talking about body dysphoria. It's something that's close to my heart because I deal with it every day, and I'm pretty sure many of you deal with it as well. And we're going to be talking with a fellow TikTok creator by the name of Potty Mouth Pollyanna, or Mandy. So let's get on getting on, and let's talk to Mandy, shall we? Let's welcome her on. There we go. Can you hear me?
There. Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
I don't have fancy microphone stuff, so do I sound okay?
You sound perfectly fine, honey.
How are you? I've missed you already.
I've missed you too, babe. How's everything going on your end?
Good. Pretty boring now since we got back from Pride. So I'm like, we all have to meet up again because I don't like.
I know, same. And it seems just like yesterday. It's already been over a week.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
Time just seems, if for anybody who does not know, myself, Mandy, and several other creators went to Minneapolis Pride. We gave hugs, took pictures, had a grand old time, and got to bond together throughout the weekend. It was a fantastic, wonderful time.
Yes, it was amazing. And for anyone ever asking, is Nathan as incredible in real life? Even more so. Like, that's the question I've gotten the most from people that know me. They're like, is he really as nice? And I'm like, beyond. Like, what you see is what you get and more. So,
and likewise for Mandy. So sweet. It was so fun. So much fun.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. I really do. And the pool, the jacuzzi.
It was perfect. That was a great Airbnb. I would stay there again in a second.
It really was. It was perfect access. We stayed at an Airbnb. It was my first time doing Airbnb because normally I stay at a hotel. Normally I do. And the Pride was so much fun.
It was.
Mandy gave me my first, what are they called? Cheese curds.
Yes. The deep fried Midwestern cheese curds. Yes.
They were everything.
You enjoyed that.
I did. We got footage of it too.
Yeah. I have footage of you that I need to get to, like when you had your veil.
Oh yes.
I want to put it together in a video, but I still want to get it to you because there's some really beautiful footage that I got of us this week. Please.
I have neglected. I didn't take as much pictures of videos as I should. That's my own fault. I was so caught up in everything happening.
Well, yeah.
I suck at being a content creator.
I kept wanting to go live, and then I kept forgetting we should go live, and then nobody went live.
I kept forgetting too, and I was like, oh yeah, squirrel.
Right? Yeah. No. Well, there was so much to see, and just when you think you'd have a moment, suddenly people would like descend. So we were like, doing the thing, doing the meet and greet thing, but
meet and greet, and then taking pictures, saying hi. It was so much fun, and I'd hate to pivot us so suddenly because I'm not good at segues.
No, it's all right.
But we brought Mandy here to have she would love to have an interesting and kind of serious conversation I think a lot of us suffer with, and that's called body dysphoria, if I remember correctly, or it's body dysmorphia, dysphoria. I forget. I don't know if they're the same term, interchangeable terms. Do you know the proper term?
Typically I hear body dysmorphia, but I feel like there could be, I think they're probably terms under the same umbrella.
Okay.
I think you could probably group it, not entirely, but even sort of into the gender dysphoria. Like, I feel like I think they all fall into a similar category, but have their own probably things. I'm most familiar with the term body dysmorphia, but
Yeah, same. And I always wind up interchanging the two. And before we begin, tell us a little bit more about you, Mandy. You do a lot of advocacy. Tell me a little bit about your history. What led you here? What led you to want to topic of body dysphoria?
So I have a very long history with my own issues with body dysmorphia. I'm as confident as I come across online. I have crippling self-doubt and issues with body hatred, essentially, that I'm continually trying to work through. My mother is wonderful, but she's the kind of mom who equated thinness with beauty, thinness with worth. And those are really hard things to unlearn. When your whole youth, you're taught being thin is more important than being healthy or happy or a fulfilling person. And so I have struggled with that my whole life, and then worked really hard not to instill those things in my kids. And still, I ended up with my daughter at 14 with social media and access to things, and stress in life. And she chose her way of dealing with that was she developed her own really terrible eating disorder. And I saw all the signs, and I kept trying to get someone to listen until suddenly she was, 5'8", 90 pounds and wasting away on me. And luckily I was able to get her treatment, and she's doing so wonderfully now 2 years later, so much healthier, so much stronger. But it's just solidified my desire to really not only get a hold of my own body dysmorphia, but also help others realize that your worth there is no relation between your weight and your worth, between what you look like and your value. Those are not things that have any correlation. And unfortunately, our society teaches us otherwise. So.
Mm-hmm. And so along your journey, did you ever have to endure anything regarding any type of eating disorder?
I did. So I've been in recovery for bulimia, for going on 20 years now. It really was bad in high school and college. It still is triggered regularly.
I understand.
I've entered into perimenopause, because I had a hysterectomy a couple years ago, and the sudden weight gain was really hard for me, has been really hard for me. And then seeking help for that, because we're taught just exercise more, eat less. It's willpower. You're lazy. You're not doing what you need to be doing. And I'm literally going, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, and nothing is working. And so I finally, after a year of just, banging my head against the wall, went and saw my doctor, who said, at that point we didn't know, if it is menopause or perimenopause, doing what you've done won't work. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there's not enough information out there about it. So we did the hormone tests, and sure enough, I'm perimenopausal. And so now it's using those tools, but also giving myself grace, because for a year I beat myself up about gaining weight. I was constantly criticizing myself in my head, and just very sad, because I felt like, what am I doing? And it's sad that it took a doctor saying, this is what's going on with me, to give myself grace. Mm-hmm. And if I can save any person, don't wait until you get a diagnosis to give yourself grace. It doesn't matter what the why is. What matters is that you allow yourself to exist in a body that has gotten you through everything up until today, Respect that body, love that body. You're here because of that body. And so, that's, for me, it's been not letting those triggers get control of me again, especially being on social media, being in front of people. Being at Pride was really hard for me. I had one breakdown when we were taking pictures somewhere, and I saw the group picture, and I shut down, because I'm like, I look huge compared to these beautiful, beautiful women. And of course I see myself through a different lens. And I had reached out to a friend, and I said, I need you to talk me down, because I'm spinning out. I can tell I'm about to go into hiding. And Megan picked up on it while I was on the phone, and she's like, we're talking, we're doing this. We're gonna, and luckily I was surrounded by people who allowed me to be vulnerable and admit that I'm feeling a certain kind of way about myself right now. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get emotional, but they saw me through it. As you know, I know as you would if you had been there with us. Like it was like they just immediately picked up on a shift in my behavior, and they said, you know, that you're not seeing yourself the way others are seeing you. You're beautiful as you are. Stop being so hard on yourself. But they did it in a very gentle way, a way that I needed, a way that took me out of my head, helped me see that, again, what I see or what I look like does not equate to my worth. And it was, so Pride was one of the first times meeting people in public. And it felt intense because I'm like, you all see me from like here up. That's most of my content, not because of my weight, but because so much of my stuff is news related and advocacy related that I want to be just face to face. Let's have this conversation. So having people see all of me was really scary. And yet it was fine and it was great. And it was empowering to be like, people aren't seeing me and being like, ooh.
We're our own toughest critics.
We really are. Yeah, I think the only body compliment or comment I got was my friend Matt, who's been my friend for 3 years on the app. And he's like, you're not as tall as I thought you'd be. And it's like, well, I can't fix that. I'm sorry.
No, we can't. And honestly, I feel the same with you because back about, at this point, 15 years ago, I went through anorexia and bulimia as well.
Okay.
And that's why I don't speak too often about from originally being 220 to now being where I am now. And I'm not perimenopausal, but I'm now a 35-year-old man. And you and I both know as your body ages, it does things different. Getting off that winter weight does not get off as easy. And now here I am, and in July, my winter weight still kind of lingering. And also I have not been really trying for imagination, but it's still that little bit of, oh, okay. And fighting that urge, because even though it's been 16 years, it's that
so powerful. It really is.
Exactly. And it's just there. And I tell people whenever you've gone through some type of eating disorder, it's like, oh, that little voice is probably going to stay for a very, 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 very long time.
Yes. I explained it to my daughter as setbacks are the rule, not the exception, because the urge and the tendency will never probably go away. She was calling her, what was she calling her? She had named her eating disorder. She had named that voice. And I can't think of what but she would be like, we'll say Joyce. I honestly can't remember, but it was, Joyce is being very loud today. And I would look at her and can I curse? Are we good to curse a little bit on here?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Like, well, Joyce is I'm like, Joyce is a cunt. So tell Joyce to be quiet. I'm like, we're not listening to Joyce today. And so for her, that was a good way to communicate with me when she was having really highly triggered days. So then it was, all right, let's talk about it. What do we think is bringing it on? And if we don't know, then we just breathe through it and we call Joyce names. And we remind ourselves that we're not going to give her that power. And because I've been through it, I think I was able to be an incredible resource for her that I didn't have growing up. Like my mom would have never noticed. In fact, when I've lost weight, that's when they will compliment me.
Exactly.
And it's like, it's very confusing when you're like, I don't want to give in to this idea that thin means pretty. But then when people will only respond to you when you're thin, it's like, well, that you're reinforcing that. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Because of course that's
all of society is designed around it. And for me, it's like this, it's become so psychosomatic. And I don't even necessarily realize the thoughts there. And suddenly my body's just like, you know what? And it's just the feeling like my body's like, oh no, we ate too much. You know what? It's that your body telling you this needs to not be this full. Therefore, it needs to not be in here. And it's not a conscious thought process. It's just my body's reacting, I guess, to something subliminal in my mind. And it's like, and I have to remind myself, no, this is good.
Yep.
We need to eat. Deal with it. It was delicious. We paid good money for that.
Yes. But it's true because people don't recognize that eating disorders tend to be a lot like people who cut or self-injure. It's a release, right? It's triggered by that feeling of over fullness or whatever, but it's also triggered if you're in a highly anxious state or whatever. And it's a release. At least it was for me and people I've talked to who've had bulimia. There is something very almost soothing in purging because and binging and purging, because you feel like, okay, good. It's out of me. It's not going to impact me.
Yeah.
But then there's that part of you who knows this is so bad for me. A, it does not necessarily result in weight loss. B, it's so bad on your teeth and your body and you're malnourishing yourself. But in the moment, when you've eaten too much, it is incredibly challenging sometimes not to let that voice get really loud.
Yeah.
Because it's been many years since I've been through like cycles of that. And yet even now, if I overeat, I have to distract myself because
you can't even just enjoy laying on your side like normal.
Right. Yes, because you're so preoccupied with, oh my God, what did I do? And you could literally not eat all day. And so you suddenly eat and you're like,
and your body's literally like, no, we need to eat this much.
And then you're still freaking out because you're like, I shouldn't have eaten all that. When logically you're still not overeating by any stretch.
Exactly.
But yeah.
And it's so damn annoying. Even if like you set the plan, like I'm getting a buffet. I have not treated myself to a buffet and I'm going to eat a buffet. It used to be my favorite pastime. Like my little treat was buffets. And I still do them because they exist and they can be very delicious. But I still have to know that, okay, your stomach, it now has this reaction when it's even just a little bit over full. It's not even a thought process like, hey, we're uncomfortable, let's get rid of it. Basically, the signals my body's getting from it. And now it's like, no, we're fine. Deal, we're going to lay on our side and watch a show or do something.
Distract yourself from that feeling of I have to get that out of me. Yeah.
Exactly. And for you, how did that impact you significantly medically? And how did you get to a healthier point in terms of your body dysmorphia? I know you still battle it now with your currently going premenopause or perimenopause. And so prior, what helped you feel inside the sideline?
So I think for me, having kids was weirdly like I had my kids and then with my twins, I had heart failure. And so that was the point where it was like my body, I had no choice but to decide, okay, these habits have to be, I will die if I keep doing this. Not because that was going to cause me to die. The heart failure was from result of my pregnancy. One had nothing to do with the other. But at that point I had a new daughter. I was fighting like hell to stay alive. I couldn't keep hurting myself. And I went through some really highs and lows after that. And I gained weight and lost weight. And then I did like Weight Watchers and I lost a ton of weight. Then I took it too far. And when I show people pictures of that time, these are the pictures in my head when I'm like, I should look like that. But when I show people, they're like, oh no, that's not, you don't look healthy at all. Like A, you look older than you do now. And B, you're skeletal. And I didn't see that. I didn't see just how skinny I had gotten. And because I wasn't giving into my eating disorder anymore, but now I was over exercising and I was over calculating. And so I ran a marathon and I did all these races, but I wasn't taking care of myself. I was just eating less and exercising all the time and didn't recognize that I had just traded one for another. And then, around the time of 2016 and I think I would love to see a study done because I see this shift that happened. There was a lot of focus on health and running and relay races and all this stuff up until like 2016. And then from 2016, and I've had this conversation with a number of people, the collective energy in our country shifted, and we know why. We had a very important and scary and turned out to be rightfully so scary election. And it seemed like the entire country sort of shifted their mindset and became less happy, less active, less whatever, as did I. Like I sank into this sort of despair of what the hell is this going to mean for our country? What is this going to mean for the LGBTQ community? What is this going to mean for women? What is this going to mean for all of us in marginalized groups? And I let that sort of take over. And that's when I shifted from over exercising and doing all those things to then I stopped doing it. And then the weight slowly crept up. I managed to maintain it for a while, then had COVID twice, lost my dad. My mom went through cancer. Paige was diagnosed with her eating disorder, and all these things happened and it creeped up a little more. And then I hit perimenopause. So it's been a roller coaster. There's just windows where I felt like I had a real hold on it. And oddly enough, now at one of the higher weights I've ever been, I feel like I have the greatest handle on that my trying to lose weight, I'm going through a doctor. I'm making choices that are healthier and smarter. I'm not being as hard on myself when I make, poor choices, or I enjoy cheese curds and corn dogs and all of that. I'm learning to listen to my body better and be like, all right, you're feeling full. You can stop. And I'm starting to integrate exercise again. But it's been a journey. I will say one of the hardest points was seeing my daughter through her eating disorder, because I wanted to be a living example of eating. But I swear for everything she wasn't eating, I was eating twice, because I wanted her to see me eat all the time. Yeah. And her fixation on not eating, her fixation on her body was super fucking triggering. Like it just was. Yes. And so as a mom, I had to find ways to not let her see that, because I didn't want to make things worse. But I also had to talk to my therapist about it and just be like, I'm having a hard time balancing helping her through her eating disorder and not slipping back into old habits of mine. Because it was very hard to watch someone else in your life go through it. And it's weird, and this is going to sound terrible, but when she was not when she was super thin, because as her mom, I was terrified. But as a woman, I'm like, I want to be thinner. And it was weird to have this weird sort of screwed up envy for something that I knew wasn't okay. Like I knew it wasn't healthy. I knew it wasn't right. But I also knew that I wasn't in the body I wanted to be in. And it was like, I wish I could just lose some weight. But it was I don't know if that's making sense, because
no, it makes total sense. I feel the same way too on occasion, especially with the emphasis the gay male community has on either the gay community has extremes. Either you're really muscular, if you're a bear, you're heavier set and really hairy, you're very thin. It's in these polarizing physical things. And right now I'm in this middle area. My body don't become a dad bod. It don't do that. But I fully understand. For those
watching, like I've seen him like by the hot tub. It looks damn good. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
I know I don't rock I rock a B where you prefer a D, but you look damn good.
You do too, my love. You do too. And I think that's another thing we have to all acknowledge is social media is a double-edged sword, because there's, of course, you and I'm sure countless of the people see so many skinny young people who are small, very fit, abs. But then on the other side, we now, especially with the rise of TikTok, we see people who are full figured, average figured, still being confident and beautiful. So it's that double-edged sword. How do you think that is currently playing into people's mindsets?
I mean, I think you still have people who, of course, body shame and try to fit people into you're only healthy if you are a certain way. But I love the amount of people that I'm seeing on social media who are embracing their body and who are healthy and are speaking out saying, I might look bigger or different than you, but I am healthy. So it's been really good for me to see those accounts and to follow some of those accounts and to push my confidence, push my, insecurities away and do things that I wouldn't otherwise be comfortable doing. And I see that a lot across social media. And one example that really stands out was when, I don't remember what news source said, heroin chic is coming back.
Oh, God.
And everyone across platforms, small, large, anyone of a certain age, millennials and later Gen X. I'm a like late Gen X, early millennial. We all said, "Oh, hell no," because the damage that did to us, the literal damage that we are still working through all these years later, we are not going to instill that on our kids, on the youth. And that was really great to see, because we didn't have that. We didn't have anyone telling us Kate Moss should not be someone you aspire to be. Not that Kate Moss probably isn't a wonderful human, but her body was not attainable. And yet we all thought we had to be that.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing people. We didn't have social media to tell us, no, that's not realistic. We didn't have websites that show this is all photoshopped and, whatever. We were taught, oh yeah, that's what's in, that's what you have to do. And seeing the collective social media say, absolutely not, we're not doing that, was really great. So I do think we're in a better place for body positivity and body confidence, body neutrality, which is super important. But we always have room to grow, because there's always going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry trying to tell us we're not attractive enough, trying to tell us we're not fit enough, trying to tell us we're not good enough, because they make money doing it.
Exactly, 100%. And I sort of would try to. I'm working on switching my mindset, because in terms of investment, and it's a weird mentality. It's kind of a weird thing. So I have friends who all got really fit for the summer because they have the time. They've invested the time to be able to get that fit. And I have to remind myself, like, you are currently not investing your time in that. You're investing your time in this, in TikTok, in the going to the thing. And then after that, it is the recovery of investing in the recovery. And so kind of doing that's like, you know what, that makes me feel better in a way, because I can't invest time in going to the gym every day. Can't invest time, but I am eating, and I'm eating. That's what matters. My body needs the food, and I need to eat to be able to function. Right. And so that is kind of helped me in a way. On occasion, I get those moments of like, I want my 6-pack back, even if I had it for like 2 months, to be honest. And that was in 2019. I did that through full-on regimented workout and meal plan. I haven't had the eating disorder since in 15 years, or 16 years. I never had an 8-pack, 6-pack then. But working out, eating well, eating kind of regimented, but within a certain caloric way, I was able to get a 6-pack that I never would have been able to achieve just being, well, anyway. But I had it for 2 months. And part of me is like, I achieved it, and that's okay. I achieved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Done. Well, and I think too, like I was in Ireland in May, and I lost weight there, but I ate whenever I wanted to eat. And I didn't actually eat probably a lot, but I was buying really good meals and enjoying them. I was also hiking a lot and doing a lot of walking, but the quality of food is so much better that you lose weight. You're eating more, you're losing, because we don't have the access to the kind of garbage food we have here. And the problem with it is that, and I think of, obviously more disadvantaged families, it is easier to feed a family food that is processed and less expensive, because that's what they can afford, versus very expensive, organic, maybe alternative foods that would fit a little bit better, healthier category. And that is all based in, again, the industry and the food industry in this country, and how we, ease over, anything else. And it's sad, because you look at even just like to get good food to make a meal can cost you $30-$40, but you can buy frozen pizzas 3 for $10. A family who's on a really tight budget, that's going to make more sense.
Exactly.
And yet we will shame the same people who carry extra weight because they don't have a choice but to eat what they can afford. And unfortunately, it's so filled with God knows what, it doesn't help them. It affects their metabolism and their bodies in ways that but it's not fair to shame them for that.
No, because at least they're fed.
Yes.
And that's the mentality. And like, whenever I've gone to Mexico recently, and I'll tell you the quickness that my stomach has no more tummy problems while I'm in Mexico, where people always derive Mexico. I'm like, my stomach problems are gone when I'm in Mexico. Here I have constant stomach issues.
Yep.
But there, not a dang thing.
Right.
And I can tell I do lose weight while I'm there because I'm eating differently.
Yeah.
I'm eating significantly differently, and the food is different. And I love it.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way in Ireland. Like, I had my first day, I sort of detox. It's like my body becomes aggressively aware that I'm not eating the same type of food. And so it'll detox the way it does. And then after that, it's like everything is just different. Your body processes it so much better. And you might eat more, but you're eating better. So it doesn't feel as like indulgent. And I mean, yeah, I absolutely get that. And the food is just better. I'm sure it is in Mexico. It's just better.
Oh, it is. And like, because then I was thinking about it. Yes, there's convenience stores, but you're walking so much. But like fast food isn't at least where I typically stay, isn't as accessible. There's little bistros, little family-owned restaurants. You pop in, have yourself some cabrito or pastor tacos. And then you get back on and go do your things. Okay, I'll meet you at the bar in an hour. I'm gonna stop and have food first. And that's the way it goes. And so we're here. I can leave my apartment. I drive down. I'm like, oh, do I want to go to that little restaurant down the street, about 10 minutes away, or I can go to the Taco Cabana that's literally on the corner. Right? And the double standard of then that we have the whole, well, you must have abs, you must be super muscular, you must have this, you must have that, is so gosh darn annoying.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think it's probably similar with women as it is in the gay community, this never ending pressure to look young and to look, because, no offense to cis het, especially white men, they get to grow old and they look good with dad bods. They look good gray. There's all these things that women will say, oh, they're attractive. But if a woman looks a certain, beyond a certain age, and how you explain, especially with the gay male community, it's like you start to age out at such a young age. Like, it's such a prime of your life, and it's like it's unattainable. People aged. May we all have the luxury and privilege to get old. Like, it is a privilege to get old, and yet we're all told all the time to stay young. You have to look young, be young. I turned 44 next week, and I've never felt like more powerful in my life. I mean, an advocate for women. I had the vice president's office reach out to me last week about attending an event. Like, these are powerful things that I should be so proud of. And I hate that my brain goes to places like, oh, people are going to see me and what are they going to think? Because it doesn't fucking matter.
And usually even then, the thing I have to remember is that more people find you attractive than you think they do. And less people care than you think they do. Like, on social media, of course, people are gonna be like, "Oh, you XYZ." It's like, okay, yeah, because I'm being shown to thousands upon thousands of people, and people, if they're annoyed by something, are gonna find something to pick at. If they're annoyed by something you're saying or whatever. But on the whole, I've learned that most people don't care, at least in general. Yeah, there's gonna be young assholes who's still young and dumb. But at the same time, it's like we go through these things where it's a lot of us having this internalized issue but the people that are gonna want to yum us are gonna want to yum us in general.
Well, even the ones who are being assholes in the comments would jump at the chance if we gave it to them. They would. Like the ones,
Yeah.
the guys will get in there and try to call me ugly. I'll be like, oh no, I'm so sad.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like I genuinely don't care what you think. Cause I know that if I slid into your DMs, you'd be all about it because you literally took the time to even make the comment. Like if you know, otherwise you would just scroll on. You'd be like annoying, block, whatever. But I'm like, you stopped for a reason. And you just didn't like what I had to say.
Yeah.
so now you have nothing better to do than just call me names and make fun of how I look. And I'm like, yeah, we're good. I don't want to pick you either. So
Yeah.
we're good.
And I think we're moving to a bit of a how do you feel that we're moving to a healthier state in terms of body expression or body acceptance and neutrality?
I do think there is. I think there are always going to be people who are going to try to set that back. I think that the beauty industry in general is always going to be against that. But I love seeing the direction it's taking. I love Gen Z's energy. Gen Z is like, they are embracing each other and bodies. And where I was bullied in high school because I didn't look like everybody else, you see you see kids now embracing each other and supporting each other. And now they're in their young 20s and they're online and they're showing like, it's okay to be, to love yourself, and to be body neutral is something I had never learned until recent years, but it's so important because it's so much more than being body positive. Being body neutral is just that this is the body I'm in. It does not matter what it looks like or how big or small it is. This is just a body. Everything up here and in here is what matters. And I love that. I love that for anyone who can attain that. And it's hard, especially when you have a lifetime of being told opposite of that. But I do love the idea that we are moving definitely into a more body positive place. And I think worldwide, it's doing even better. I think our country in particular, because of the extraordinary amount of money in the beauty industry, we're always going to have to fight that.
Yeah.
But I do even like seeing in, certain companies are embracing different bodies and, showing that everybody can be beautiful. Whether they're doing it because they're pressured to by, I think of like Victoria's Secret, who got such a bad backlash, and they were like, so they felt pressured to, but they did start being a little more inclusive. Do we have a long way to go? Sure. But I like seeing it. And, it's nice to have size inclusivity because nothing makes you feel worse than when you go in a store and everything is smaller than you.
Yeah.
And so I do think we're moving in a good direction.
So do I. And also I think eventually I do want to talk to a straight man, because I remember that while yes, women have a high rate of eating disorders, men can, but are less likely to seek help for
Yes.
the same thing with mental health as well. And because I know as a whole, a lot of men put on a front about like, oh, my body's whatever, but at the same time, there's a lot of times where like, if you were honest,
Right.
how do you feel about your body? And if there are any straight men listening and watching this, tell us how you feel about your body.
Yeah.
Because again, your body's only purpose is to keep you alive. The aesthetics, we're the ones that overlay that.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, and that's the unfortunate thing, right? And I was certainly not being disrespectful when I said that cis white men get a lot of grace from other people.
No, especially when it comes to aging, cis white men do get.
When it comes to body, body and body neutrality, it's like mental health. It's like a sexual assault. There is a stigma around men being able to express those things and seek help for those things. And as with you, I'd love to hear their thoughts, because it is so critically important that they be allowed to speak on it too without judgment. I have a guy friend who has always been very, he's always been very sort of closed off, doesn't let himself be vulnerable. And with me, he has. And it's something where he will literally be like, this is very uncomfortable, but I'm so proud that he feels he can be. And it's been very good for him, because he doesn't feel like he has to be quiet about things that are bothering him or he's going through. he's going through some stuff that's challenging. And it's nice that he knows he can talk about it. But I can see where, he's in his 40s, like he's not been allowed to do that because there's just such this idea like, oh, you're not strong, you're not masculine, you're not this, you're not that. And I just keep reiterating, like, it is incredibly attractive that you're able to be vulnerable because it tells me you want to be a good person and you want to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think that men, I know a lot of the men on the internet think I hate them. I actually don't hate them. If you're the type of man who claims I do, I probably don't like you very much, but I don't hate you and I don't want anything bad happening to you. And I don't, disregard the stigmas that are around it. I think men as a whole, especially straight men, would be happier if they were taught. And this is something I advocate all the time for, teaching boys emotional regulation, emotional maturity, vulnerability as young men, young boys, so they can grow into men who have that. Yeah. And are able to express those things and address those things. And it's why when men are suicidal, they are more likely to take their own lives because they are taught they aren't supposed to talk about things. They aren't supposed to express things. They aren't supposed to get help. And that's important. They should, we want that. I know you do. I know, like, I want them to, get that help and be able to speak their feelings.
And I think that's one of the things that we all face in this current growing times is people not really understanding all of this stuff. Because it's like we can talk to a blue in the face, but if they're not willing to admit certain things to themselves, then they're gonna have to take that first step. In terms of like, what are you compensating for? Are you compensating what society says you're supposed to look like? What you're supposed to have? How fit you're supposed to be? How skinny, slim, whatever. What is it? And I think right now we are moving to a healthier, especially with these Gen Z kids.
Mm-hmm. They really are incredible. And they're a generation that's been brought up with active shooter drills and just, girls people with uteruses have less rights than I have had my entire life. Now the Supreme Court last week doing all the damage they could possibly do in a day, or 2 days. And now they're literally talking about a law. They're going to hear about a law. There's a law that they're going to hear regarding letting domestic violence abusers have guns, because right now there's a federal law that if you have an active restraining order, you can't have a firearm. And our Supreme Court, who's just done away with affirmative action, shut down the student loan, bailout or student loan forgiveness, allowing people to discriminate based on a hypothetical lawsuit that wasn't even real. And now you're going to tell me they're going to hear a case letting abusers have firearms because of their Second Amendment rights? Like, we live in a time when these kids are getting they've barely begun life. Many of these in their early 20s, and they're being handed all these things are being stripped away, and they're mad. Mm-hmm. They're pissed, but they're also so connected to each other. That's where that body neutrality, they've learned to embrace each other and love each other as they are and find power in their voices, power in their actions over worrying about this. And it's just really, really incredible to watch. I have a couple Gen Zers of my own, so and I love it. I love watching it because it's incredible to see. I think we are in good hands with them. We just have to get them to the voting booths, and but they're going to change this. They're going to change this country. I have no doubt.
And I think it's going to be for the better.
I agree. It really is. It's why so many really old adults are scared of them.
Yeah.
Old adults in power who are rich and in power, who are, kind of, they're dodging everything they can. They're not paying their fair share. They're making sure that the housing market is incredibly, I know you're really passionate about housing and affordable housing, and they're the reason we don't have it. Yeah. And Gen Z sees it. And they're like, no, we're not going to do this.
We're going to fix it. Mm-hmm. And so pivoting back to your journey, Were there any, I guess, did you do any reading to help you kind of come to terms with what you'd gone through? Have you any reading or research that, because I know certain people like to read something inspirational or listen to things inspirational during those times. Was there anything for you when you were facing your own body dysmorphia that kind of helped you see the beauty of yourself? And what was that helped you see the beauty of yourself?
So for me, a lot of it is just, it's a really good question. And a friend of mine pops in my head, and I don't know why, because I don't see her very often. But she was one who said to me, you know, this body you have right now got you here. It got you here. Everything you've overcome, your body got you here. And it's something that pops into my head every time I'm struggling. Like, why are you being so unkind to yourself? Why are you being so unkind in general to yourself? Because your body didn't do anything to deserve it. It's doing its job, whatever that job is in the moment. And for me, I'm more of a distract mindset. So when I'm having a hard time, I pour myself into distractions like books and theater. I do a lot of theater, things that will help me get outside of my head. So there are some wonderful books that I came across. I can't think of the title of one when my daughter was going through hers that really helped with, you know, grounding and triggers. But for me, as silly as it's going to sound, I really like post-apocalyptic books and stories. And it's so weird because what I will do is I will go for a walk and I'll put an audiobook on, and it has to be some story that's so fantastical and not rooted in reality so that I can just get out of my head. And then I convince myself I'm the next Katniss Everdeen and that I'm going to survive like the apocalypse and save the world. And, you know, and so then I get into that mindset of, you're a strong, powerful woman. And I also listen to strong, powerful women. Like Tina Fey is somebody I absolutely fucking adore. You know, Michelle Obama. Yeah, I listen to powerful women. It has nothing to do with my body image, but it has to do with just powerful women and powerful women's voices. And just remembering that these women are not, I don't look at any of these women and think of their bodies. I mean, okay, Michelle Obama's arms, come on. But I don't look at their bodies and think I like them because of their bodies. I like them because they're powerful women. And they're powerful women who have something that they stand for and something that's important and something that they work towards that has nothing to do with their bodies. Yeah. And that's really good for me, is to just escape or to listen to people who motivate me and challenge the way that I think about the world, versus focusing in on body. Because I do find self-help books kind of, I don't know, they don't really do it for me. So many of them who come along are rooted in faith, and I'm an atheist, so that doesn't help. And so many of them just feel, I don't know, like, I don't know the word, like silly. That's a lack of a better word. They just don't really resonate with me. I'd rather hear somebody's journey and somebody's story and how they've become the powerful person they are. Because I believe that we all have the capability of greatness and the capability of being powerful if we just get out of our own way. And whatever that might look like for you is enough and is good enough. Even this journey online. You told me 3 years ago that I was going to be a voice for hundreds of thousands of women. And I was going to be doing interviews with you and doing interviews with people for their dissertation on feminists and social media and being invited to things by the White House. I would have said, you're out of your mind. You're bonkers. Yeah. No way. But every time I get out of my own way, good things come, good things happen. And it's incredible. And I'm sure you felt that and experienced that in your journey. And how about you with your journey? What helps you? I know you're interviewing me, but what helps you?
Oh, no. During my journey of kind of realizing what was happening, it took me having to kind of shift everything. Because I did get to 135. Right now I'm at 155 at my smallest. But once again, it kind of took me to I'm both introspective and like to get out of my head at the same time.
Sure.
It's a weird place to be. And I started continued on my fitness journey, but tried to make the whole food thing less of an issue, less of, okay, this, and just kind of, okay, I have to eat. Your body has to eat. And I don't do many self-help books on occasion. I will read philosophy. Like I do a lot of stoicism. But when it comes to reading, I do like a good little bit of escapism. And it's a problem sometimes because I'll forget you live, because I read a lot of sci-fi. And I'll be walking around after reading the book or being in this literary world that's set 1,000, 2,000 years in the future. And I'm like, oh, when I'm 250, I'm probably going to look. And I'm like, wait, Nathan, no, you're not in the book's world.
I know, but isn't it wonderful when you can feel like you are? Like, yeah, it really is. Like, I love that feeling of you look around the world and you think, like, I'll because where I live is really rural. So I'll see like a highway and there's no cars on it. And in my brain, I'm like, the world has ended and like you're surviving. And it's like, girl, go home. You're just out for a walk, crazy.
I fully get you, because my stuff is always like sci-fi 3000, and I'm like, Nathan, no, these things don't exist yet. But then I get so fascinated with the fact that sci-fi has had a tendency of predicting technology and sociological trends. Like one book series that I did not realize was going to be as cerebral as it became. I thought it was going to be a basic military shoot 'em up sci-fi in space type of thing. No, this bitch became this whole societal examination, and was the first book series I'd ever read where they truly depicted sentient alien species as truly alien. And like, we cannot understand them. And their technology is on par with us in a lot of instances, but we literally cannot. And the author did a really good way of doing that, but then also took to examine, this book was only set like 200 years in the future, but really took a look at what technology would mean, how technology would advance, how society would advance in human culture, and how we would have, our phones would basically be grown into our own mind, where you and I could link and send messages and call each other through our head, no longer a handheld thing.
We would never sleep. We would never sleep. We'd just be like,
exactly. And it was and how monogamy would become the taboo, and polyamory and things like that would become the norm. And what is human at that point becomes a conversation. Fascinating book. It's the book series is the Star Carrier series. Ian Douglas. Very fascinating. You lose yourself in this world.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, because I love it.
It's fun. There's a few moments in the last book where I was like, but okay. But the series as a whole, fantastic. So yeah, kind of similar journey, kind of getting lost in my own book.
I love that we both love those stories. I am actually right now, audiobook wise. So it is a Black author that I came across it on Book Talk, which if you want a wild ride, check out Book Talk, because they got drama.
I know. And I'm like, okay.
I was like, I'm just going to escape over here for a bit. Tell me more. But it's called Legendborn, is the first in the series by Tracy Dion. And it is absolutely brilliant. I'm about halfway through it, I'm about 2/3 way through it. And then there's a secondary book I haven't gotten to obviously yet. But it's so great because it's modern day, but it's one of those ones like people have powers and they're part of like a bloodline from like King Arthur. And it's this wild ride. But the Black character, the central character, is this Black girl, and it's so well written and such a great story. And of course I love supporting BIPOC creators and really just getting, listening from their point of view, getting their take, because it beautifully, it addresses a lot of things that as a white person I'm never going to understand. So I love hearing that, because it's integrated in a way that you would never get in most books, because they're written for a white audience. And it's just so good, but it's such a great escape, because it's like, it's like, is she going to fall in love with the bad demon guy, or is she going to be with this King Arthur descendant, and is she going to be the queen? She should be the queen. She's so powerful. And it's like, I'm just like totally enthralled with it. And it's so good. And I was really glad I came across it on Book Talk, because I was just looking for something and it's captivated me completely.
Book Talk has introduced me. I read Mexican Gothic, and there's been some other books that were more societal commentary. Like I just read the book, A Generation of Sociopaths, How the Boomers Killed America. Yeah. Fascinating read. As
I
the child of a boomer,
that sounds
and it's good because it goes through like the trends and the facts of everything and how the generation as an overarch. Very good. I'm still about a quarter of the way through, and I sometimes look at my mother, because my mother's 72 and she has boomer tendencies. But like one time she was at the hospital, she's like, I'm gonna the nurse isn't paying attention. Like, Mom, it's 2021, Mom. You are like one of like 30 people he's taking care of.
Right.
My mom started being an asshole because he didn't bring her apple juice quick in time. I'm like, Mom, he's your nurse. Stop. He's your nurse, not your servant. Yeah,
my dad was really funny. My dad is a very quiet man. He passed very suddenly of a COVID stroke, but he was a paraplegic. He was paralyzed in a car accident when I was a freshman in college, and he was in the hospital. He had fallen. He had when he was trying to transfer to his chair, he ended up breaking his leg. But because he can't feel it, he hadn't realized it until he noticed it didn't look right. So he's in the hospital, and I'll never forget, because this makes me laugh every time. Because to me, asking, hey, do you have a DNR makes sense like that? Do you want us to use life-saving methods if you're whatever? To my dad, that was pure insanity. They're like, in the event that you would, need life-saving care to bring you back, if you were to, code, do you want us to do that? The look on my dad's face when he's like, I mean, yeah, like more of a, what the fuck is your job if not to keep me alive? And I'm laughing so hard because I'm like, that's a fair question, Dad. Like, he's just like, he's like, what kind of question is this? I came in with a broken leg. Don't let me die. Like,
and my mom has this different. My mom's like, if I die, let it. I'm like, Mom. Damn it, we could have just kept you at home if you wanted to be a DNR during this heart attack. She's like, well, I want to survive, but if suddenly I start coding, I'm like, oh my God. But it's so interesting, though. I will give my mom, she's one of the people that's like, she's both very body confident, but also a little self-conscious. She's like, I'm 72. This is what you get. And I have both the privilege and the dismay, because nobody wants to see their 70-year-old parent naked. But I sometimes I'll give her a sponge bath, and it's still one of the funniest things that gets on my nerves, because her cesarean scar doesn't meet her bypass scar, and that's
Yeah.
But she just stands there, and I was like, Mom, and she's like, I gave birth to you. You can see all of this. But sometimes it's that moment of my body, while my tits hopefully will not hang down to that far down like my mother's will, because my body's eventually gonna look like that. And It's one of those moments of like, I can't fight that. I can try. Plastic surgery better advance more, but
which I fully support. Like, for anyone who wants to do it, you do what makes you feel confident.
Exactly.
My dad was in the hospital once, and I remember that he needed to so he had to use a catheter because he was paraplegic. And so we got a nurse in there, and I was like, look, I love my dad, but there are just some things I don't need to see as an adult. And so like, I sat with my back to hold, like, he was like kind of propped up on my back. So I sat with my back to him and let her help him. So I was like, I'm good. I love you. I don't need to. Like, in the event that I had to, fine. But I was like,
I'm so nonplussed by, like, because she'll literally just, I'm like, okay, let me get the
Oh,
thing, the
yeah.
spongy on a stick. And we'll joke about it. So I'm like, I'm cleaning between her ass, and she does joke. She's like, I wish my ass wasn't this big, but it saved me because she's a fall risk, and so since she's 3/4 ass, she'll fall on her. And so we've taken that as a very big blessing, so we don't bitch. But occasionally she'll be like, I'm so old. I'm like, Mom, we can't stop this. She's like, it means I can just be.
I mean, for real, I look forward to the point where I can just be like, fuck it, I don't care. I mean, and I'm getting there. With every year I get older, I get a little more like, this life is, why am I putting energy into this? You don't like me, fine, like, bye. Like, and of course, when we're doing social media, there's that external approval that we're all sort of seeking, and it's hard. Because we do want people to resonate with our content. We do want people to gain something from us putting all that work in. But then there gets to a point where I'm like, even with trolls, when I first started, I didn't have the thick skin. I did to a point, but I would let things get to me. Now I'm like, now I just make jokes of it. Now it's just like, I'm going to make it as uncomfortable for them as I can.
Yeah.
Because I just don't care. I realize that most of these are probably 16-year-old kids in a basement being a jerk or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, I just find unique ways to just troll them back and be like, okay, because this is who I am. This is what, no matter what size I am tomorrow, next day, next week, whatever, that's got to be for me and not for anybody else. And for anybody else, fuck off if you don't like it. Like, but yeah, no. And I have had to help my mom with like bathing and stuff. And she does the same sort of thing where but again, because there's so much rooted sort of trauma with body stuff from her, I usually have to just sort of tune her out and be like, Mom, it's fine, because I don't want it to trigger me.
Not your own thing.
But she's, similar to, as far as like, she can't do it. I'm like, yeah, I can help. But I've always been a person who can do it. I can be a good caregiver in the event that I have to be. So, you can, you sort of put it out of your head. You're like, we're going to do the thing. We got to get it done.
Yeah. And I think one of the quotes that I think it was on TikTok, it may have been sooner because I feel like it was earlier in that, where it was an older woman and somebody's probably going to comment. It may be even a silly quote, but it was, one day you're going to be old and you're going to look back at those pictures where in those pictures you thought you looked your worst. But future you's gonna be like, damn, I looked good. So appreciate the body you have now.
Yes.
And so it's that moment of, you know what, I'm gonna try my best to start appreciating it more now. Yeah. Because in another 10 years, it's not gonna do what it used to.
Right.
I'm gonna keep doing what it can do. And I think that's something we all need to start learning.
And a nice way to, something that I find sometimes when I'm feeling really in my head, is if you have someone that you're in a relationship with in an intimate way, or someone that you trust, let them be your eyes in those moments. When you're feeling it, like when I called my friend, I was like, I need you to talk me down because and I sent them the pictures that were freaking me out. And so that I was being very honest. I'm like, these are what I'm seeing and this is what I'm upset about. And they were able to then talk me down and be like, you're beautiful. Like, obviously, I'm attracted to you. Like, I wouldn't be. I've seen you. You're gorgeous. I don't know. You got to get out of your head. And letting people do that is sometimes it's really hard because you're like, oh, you're just saying it. But no, they genuinely, if they are willing to say it, they mean it. If they're willing to enjoy your body, they obviously enjoy your body.
Yes.
And so sometimes when you're really in your head, it's having those people that can be your sort of North Star, so to speak, and they can help you out of your head when you're having those moments, and they can be lifesavers, and that's why I get so heartbroken when I hear of women who are in relationships with men who are so unkind, because those men, even and women and gay couples and straight couples, doesn't really matter. But if you are with somebody who is so disrespectful to you that they make you feel bad about your body, the damage that can do.
Yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking to me because I hear from women all the time who say, you're so gorgeous. I wish I could be beautiful and confident like you. And I'll be the first to say, oh, honey, I am insecure to a fault, but I fake it till I make it.
Yeah.
I said, I have crippling, like insecurities sometimes, paralyzing even, but I push through because I know if I don't, I will easily just hide out, and that's not going to do me any good.
Exactly. Once you push past it, you just wind up having an even better time than you even assumed you were going to.
Oh, I was terrified about Pride. I won't lie. I was terrified to meet people in person and I not live up to a certain mental image or whatever. And it went away in like 2 seconds flat. I arrived, I saw you guys, we all hugged, we laughed, we were already having a good old time, and that was out of my head so fast. And I normally would never be seen in a bathing suit. I normally would never be seen like just being goofy in pajamas with people. And it was gone. It was out of my head. Not like that whole weekend. It was such a freeing experience to just be there and have fun. And we all made each other feel so good and so confident and so loved the whole time. And it was so great to push past that fear, because in other versions of me, even in just the last couple of years, I would have passed on going because I would have been too scared that I would have felt like I was being judged and disliked because of how I looked like. And that's so silly, because that's one of my favorites. The least interesting thing about a person is what they look like. So yeah, it's pretty amazing when you get past that and can feel confident.
100%. And we're at the end of our time. So what are some to get back, what are some references or things or places you would recommend people who are currently, or pages even, that are currently dealing with their own body dysmorphia or eating disorder?
I need to pull it up because I don't remember names off the top of my head right now.
Nothing wrong with that.
There is that one book I really want to recommend because it is a really good. I actually ended up buying 2 copies, one for myself and one for my daughter. Okay, so one of the best books that I did come across was Life with ED, or Life Without ED, and it is a wonderful book about grounding yourself. It's a woman's journey with her eating disorder, and how she was able to sort of quiet that voice. And it's one that was recommended by my daughter's. Was it recommended by no, it was recommended by my therapist for us to utilize. And I was it's actually highly reviewed, and it's a really, really good, just sort of helps you with a lot of grounding and just techniques to put that out of your head. Because like we've talked, that voice is ever present. So anything you can do to sort of silence it, the better you're going to succeed. And then there is there's a lot of online stuff now since COVID where you can join online Zoom like support groups. And I'm looking to see where one of the sites that we used. So there's the Eating Recovery Center is one that offers support groups, as well as ANAD.org, which is another one that has online support groups. So what you can do is dial in with a Zoom, dial in and call in on your phone, and you can participate in sort of kind of like an AA, or, so it's just an eating disorder support group, which I highly recommend because they have age specific categories. So like for my daughter, there's like teenagers because they're dealing with a different pressure and different experiences. But then there's also adult, there's people who are in places of recovery and maybe places of active eating disorders. And it just allows, there's a lot of options. There's a lot more options than what we had 15, 20 years ago. And it's really wonderful that those things are available online, because we were going through this in the thick of COVID. So my options for her were limited. Luckily we could see a doctor every, couple weeks, but in terms of like going to events or eating disorder support groups, there just wasn't anything. So we relied on those, and they were really helpful. But the book I highly recommend. Like I said, I bought it for her. I was kind of reading it too, and I was like, I'm just gonna get my own copy because it's proven to be helpful for me as well.
And that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing those. I may ask
Yeah.
you to send me the links to some of those things.
Certainly will.
Well, on that note, I hate to go, but I think we have reached the end of our show.
It's been truly wonderful. I really appreciate you having me on.
And I appreciate you for agreeing to be on and offer to be on. I really am happy to have been able to do this. And
happy to come back and talk about anything ever again. Like, this is a lot of fun. So
I would love to have you back. We can talk about some more interesting topics.
absolutely. That sounds great.
Well, thank you, my love. You take care and you have a very good night, baby.
You too, darling. All right. Bye.
Bye. Oh gosh, that was Mandy, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. It was a little meandering, beautiful conversation regarding body dysmorphia, dysphoria, and eating disorders. I hope you were able, if you are currently going through any of that, feel free to go to the resources that Mandy listed, and it'll be okay. Now, I want to give a special thank you to Mandy for agreeing to be on this show, and also a thank you to my patrons on Patreon who make this possible. If you want to become a patron on my Patreon, as low as $3 a month, feel free, patreon.com/Shining Nathan. And thank you, my darlings. As you can tell, I apologize for the abrupt cut, but our original next episode was going to be Traveling Life in a Traveling Broadway show, but it had to be rescheduled. So now our next episode is going to be a wonderful interview with a person who is a trans man and what their life is like as a trans person in America. With everything currently going on against the trans community, I think it's important for us to learn their lives and feel a connection, because together we are more brilliant and together we learn and grow. As always, I love you, darling, and you take care of yourself. And remember to drink your water.